Hi, 6th grade. This is Mr. Salamoni, and this is my second video talking about notes and rhythm. And what I have on the board right now is just a review. So I'm only going to spend about a minute or so reviewing this material. It's what I did in the last video, so if you need to see that video, you can go ahead and check it out on Google Classroom. So I just want to review that in my first video, we talked about how a whole note is 4 beats long. It takes up a whole measure. A half note is half the measure long, 2 beats apiece. So we have 1, 2, and then 3, 4. The quarter note, there's 4 of them because we're talking about 4 beats in a measure right now, so 1 beat each, 1, 2, 3, and 4. You'll notice from the last video, I have the numbers at the beginning because we still have a number. We still have 1, 2, 3, 4, but we have 1 and 2, and we have to call that something. And the same thing goes for this, 1 en, 2 en, 3 en, 4. So in the video I did it at one steady tempo, so I'm just going to do that right now so you can see how the notes all work. The bigger ones here are going to take longer, their note duration is longer. The smaller notes, like the 16th note, they're going to happen faster and they are shorter. So we have, with a steady beat, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the half notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 en, 2 en, 3 en, 4 en. I think the most important point to remember is that as the beat is steady and doesn't change in tempo, these are still at the same speed. It's just that because there's more of them, they have to go faster. This is 1 note per beat, but this is 2 notes that have to fit in 1 beat, and this is 4 notes that have to fit in 1 beat. To continue what we talked about with our note pyramid, which again is a review, and I would just like to make sure that every 6th grader, whether you're new to an instrument or you have some experience, is very familiar with this stuff because, again, this is just a foundation for how we're going to do rhythm in my class. We don't always do just counting. We do something called Kodai, and that'll be in the next lesson. For right now, I'd like you to notice how I've made a rhythm pyramid, and it's like your pyramid with the notes, but this has only rests, and that's because for every type of note, there's a type of rest. But everything works the same way. The only difference is that when you have a rest, you have the same amount of space with no sound, but they're counted exactly the same. So let's take a look at what they look like here. We have a whole rest. I like to tell students that it kind of looks like a hole in the ground. You're walking along and then you kind of fall in the hole. Whereas the half rest, half starting with H, well, this kind of looks like a hat. So that's a good way to tell the difference between the two. And these are 2 beats each. So where you have a whole beat of rest, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it would be the only rest in the whole measure. Here, a half rest would be half the measure, 1, 2, 3, 4 beats of rest. These little squiggly lightning bolt looking things are quarter rests. They are the same value as a quarter note. We count them the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then right here, these fancy looking 7s are actually 8th rests. Unlike 8th notes, they're not tied together. So they're just going to be right next to each other. Usually you won't see 2 of them next to each other. That's why they don't tie them together. If you were going to put 2 of them together, you could just use that, which is 1 beat, and 2 of these make a beat, whereas 4 of these make a beat. So as you can see, it's counted the same as 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, except we just don't hear anything. And then 16th notes, 1 en, 2 en, 3 en, 4 en. So you're going to want to know what they look like and just be familiar with the different names. And in the next segment right now, I'm going to switch over to putting the notes and the rests together. For this final segment of today's video, I wanted to show you a combination of things, notes and rests, so you can see how they work when they're put together. The first thing just to point out is that when we're talking about a beat, which is just that steady pulse that we have in music, whatever the speed of the song is, that's its beat. Well, beats are made with quarter notes, so we just have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 quarter notes is really not a rhythm, it's really just a beat. But when you start combining a bunch of different notes together, you get rhythm. And what we're trying to do as 6th graders is understand rhythm the same way, so that when we get our music, the first thing that we can understand about it is what's the rhythm and do I know how to play the rhythm correctly? So we already know about the beat. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that so that it's not up here distracting us from the rhythms. So this first note right here, as you can see, it falls under my numbers just like our pyramid did. So this is still 1. And this right here is still 2. And this right here is still 3. And this right here is still 4. Now the only thing we have to do in order to count this, or as they call it, subdivide this rhythm, is to add our N right here and our E and A from our earlier examples. So now what we have is 1, 2, and 3, E, and a 4. If I were to go ahead and clap that, it would sound like this: 1, 2, and 3, E, and a 4. And if I were to play it over here on the piano, it would be 1, 2, and 3, E, and a 4. So with that said, let's look at rhythm number 2. Rhythm number 2 has a big rest in it. And what that means is that when we get there, we're still going to count 3, 4, but we're just not going to say anything. Just to make that easier to see, let's go ahead and put the numbers there. 1, there's 2, there's number 3 and 4. We don't hear 3 and 4, they're just space that's taken up by the rest. So this would be clapped as 1, 2, and rest, rest. Or if I wanted to count, 1, 2, and 3, 4. So we still have to count during that space, but we don't play any sounds because it's a rest. The next one, I just put a simple quarter rest in the middle. And I will just, again, do the counting here. You don't always have to write out counting, but for the purpose of this video, I think it's helpful for you to just see that every note, whether it's an eighth note, a quarter rest, or a quarter note, has a count, and it fits somewhere in the measure. So if this is what our measure looks like, this would be played rest, and if we were to count it, it would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of how we put the rhythms together. Now, really these videos are for you to get a basic understanding. What we will do in class is we'll practice with examples like this. So email me if you have any questions, and I'll see you at the next live session.